Jennifer Miller. Thanks for being here. Today on Vector Rising, I am talking with Don Mamone. I met Don while taking the photography class at Brookhaven College. Don and their wife, Emily, started an award-winning photography studio 14 years ago in Dallas and now are working with clients around the globe. Outside of their creative work, Don is a committed advocate for the LGBTQ plus community and works to create safe spaces that support unapologetic authenticity. Don, is there anything more you'd like to add to that?
Well, the first thing I'd like to add is thank you so much for such a lovely intro. You know, my favorite hat to wear is parent, and I am the parent of a beautiful, creative, talented, and 9 going on 19 daughter named Frankie. But other than that, I'm certain that there's lots of things that we're going to get into. So thank you again for the gracious opening. I'm really honored to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So we've got a bunch of little questions here, and they're kind of divided into sections. So let's get started. What was your own journey into photography and creative work before teaching your class at Brookhaven?
Oh my gosh, you're going to make me go all the way back. I took a class in high school. A friend of mine had an old camera that was a film camera, and they took a class and they thought it was okay. It was fun. It was a cool elective to take, but I didn't have a camera. So I said, hey, can I borrow your film camera? And I'm going to take a photography class. And I liked the capture. I had a lot of fun with it. But ultimately, for me, it was developing the film, the old film where you would literally use the stop bath and the fixer and the developer. And I could spend entire days in the darkroom. And when I went to give the camera back, my friend said, you should keep it because you're going to use it a lot more than I am. And it became a hobby, became a bit of a passion. But I guess I just had this sort of belief that it was a hobby and a passion and not really a career option. So I went into hospitality. I graduated from college, and I really only used my camera for the first probably decade as a tool to have fun and to kind of do hobby-like things. And it wasn't until my life took a bit of a change that I thought, you know, this was when I was the happiest. I think I'm gonna do this now as a living.
How did you become a teacher? Did you end up getting like a certificate?
Yeah, so there was another photographer whose name was Jorge Martinez, and he was a very nice person, and we just knew each other through the photography community. And right around the time I started teaching was that moment that my life took a shift. I was in hospitality. I worked in hotels for the better part of a decade, and then I kind of burnt all out, and I loved everything about it right up until I didn't. And I finally went to my boss and I said, you know, this isn't a fit for me, this hotel, this existence. I think it's time for me to make a change. And so that's why I came to Dallas. I came to Dallas. I took a job in first, out last, long hours. And so I started photographing events just for fun. I did a trade partnership with some publications here in town. So Jorge said, you know, I know you're not in the corporate world anymore. Would you like to teach? And I was like, well, I don't have like my master's degree. No. These are extension classes. You basically have to show that you have the talent and the creativity and the ability. And it's like an interview or an audition. And I went in and I fell in love with it when I first started doing it. And so it really just became another one of those sort of things that you love that you get to do and make a little money while you do it.
You had a long career in hospitality, like you just said, culminating as director of events at the Beverly Hilton. What lessons from that world carried over into your photography studio and creative practices?
It was really interesting to me because I grew up in Southern California most of my formative years, and I lived all throughout Southern California. I grew up in Orange County, I went to school in Santa Barbara. I did a stint in San Diego, and I got this opportunity. And here's the thing, and no offense to anybody that lives there, this is no shade. I didn't love LA. I drove through LA more than I drove to LA. But when the opportunity presented itself, it was that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a career making opportunity. The director of events at the Beverly Hilton, where they do the Golden Globes and where they do the HBO parties and the pre-Grammy Awards, it was epic. And I thought, this is it. And the takeaway was, listen to your gut. I wasn't aligned with the existence there. I didn't value the things that were of value to a lot of the people that worked in and around the Hollywood area. And again, no shade, just wasn't a good fit for me. And it's interesting because it was a very challenging couple of years to exist in a place where you kind of don't fit. And so my takeaway is that sometimes the universe is listening and it gives you what you think you want, only to show you that it's maybe not what you really want. Because if you had told me 20 something years ago, by the way, in about 20 years, you're going to be living in the state of Texas, married with a child, not working in corporate America at all, I would have told you you were wildly crazy. And yet here we are.
I've had many of those moments myself. They're good. With your studio, the Mamones LLC, which you run with your wife, Emily, and your speaking coaching work, how did that transition happen from photographer to coach author?
I really did have this sort of fundamental belief that I wasn't an artist. I did it as a hobby. It was sort of fun. But what I started to learn was I study people is really what it boils down to. One of my favorite anecdotes is there's a young man that works with us, actually took the classes that you did, Jennifer. His name is Simon. And he took some of the classes you took. And he called me one day and he said, I want to leave the financial world behind. I want to be a photographer. And so he apprenticed with us. He went on to create his own studio. And we went to a conference in Las Vegas to photograph. And then there was a 2-day gap between a conference we wanted to attend for photographers. So we worked a job. And then I said to Simon, I lived in Southern California long enough to know that nobody stays in Vegas for 2 extra days because nothing good ever comes from that. So we left and went to the Grand Canyon. Here I am at one of the world's greatest natural wonders. And my favorite photo was me taking a photo of him taking a photo. It was this beautiful silhouette with the sun rise behind him, and he was taking a picture of this beautiful Joshua tree. And I took this photo, and then I delivered a huge canvas of it for his office because it was just a really beautiful photo. But ironically, here I am in this beautiful place where people spend days taking pictures, and all I wanted to do was tell the story of Simon taking his photo. So what I realized was I'm really a student of people. And as I went on my own journey towards authenticity, there was this stunning realization that part of creativity is a rejection of conformity. And as I really embraced my gender identity, who I am, and how I get to exist in this world free from the confines of conformity, I realized that there's a lot of that rooted in creativity as well. And I'll say this, it took me 41 long years to acknowledge something different about myself. But the minute I did, it was a race. It was a race to all the ways in which I could create impact in the world, rooted in authenticity and creativity.
The phrase people first, then profit comes up in your work. How would you describe what that means for a creative professional or studio?
It is, I think, one of the most important things for really anyone in any space. I tell people that I have the pleasure of coaching and working with that unless you're a 501c3 or other nonprofit organization, it is very, very important that you make money and you keep a watchful eye on the bottom line, because if you don't, you will in fact go out of business. But I have this firm belief that if you put people first and then you focus on profit, it is a sort of chicken egg argument in a sense that the more you focus on people and create a business and a brand rooted in humanity, in integrity, then the profit will not only follow, it will be far greater than if you put the profit first. And so it really has always been a very strong North Star for us when we do business. It has been a measure and a metric that we've used frequently when people have come to us for advice, when clients have been asking like, hey, I'm in this situation. There was this misunderstanding, communication. I need to figure out how to position this proposal. Typically, we come back to, great, keep a watchful eye on your bottom line and make sure that you're taking accountability and all the things. And just remember, people first, then profit. So it's foundational. And I love it. And I will continue to scream it from the mountaintops because I genuinely believe it's one of the cornerstones of why we've been so successful.
No, I completely agree with you. And I feel that even in my career, just I focus on the people and, making sure that like my team is happy and they're doing the creative work that they really want to do.
The things that in that moment will reap the most benefit. And so, for example, when I'm doing advocacy or activist work with regards to social justice for the LGBTQ plus community, when something's happening, that gets my full attention. And I use the creativity to either capture photos or video or write articles relative to that thing. It's funny because I think people say, walk me through a typical day. There are no typical days for us. Sometimes my commute is walking my way down the hallway to my office. And other times a typical day for me might be getting on a plane and flying halfway around the country to do a speaking engagement or work in service to a photography client. So I think for me, I said earlier, the most important hat I wear is as a parent. I spend as much time with Frankie as I can when she's here. So typically we have a lovely breakfast together after I've already done a little bit of work before she gets up. We take her off to school. I find myself doing quite a bit of writing these days, creating videos that I feel create impact on the world around me. And I do a lot of self-care, but also self-work. I try to find ways in which I know that I am listening to myself because I think creativity is oftentimes pushed to the side and it's not valued as much. And so I think we'll probably talk about routines and habits and things like that. But I engage in something that I call deliberate practice, which I think is way more important than a routine because it's a conscious choice and not just something that you do. And so my days are filled with taking care of myself, taking care of others, and ushering forth things that people can read, watch, and listen to that I think will inspire them to be at their best and to acknowledge and appreciate themselves as much as anybody else.
It's awesome. I'm going to end up having to rewatch myself and you because this is awesome. These little nuggets. That's great. I struggle with that a lot. I definitely am routine based, but I like this concept a lot more.
I think that it's common. I hate the word normal. I really never try to use the word normal anymore because I think normal has just it gives me the ick, as the kids say now, because it makes it feel like anybody who's not doing that is not normal. And so I say common. Jennifer, I think that it's very common for us to disregard ourselves and the things that are important to us and just indulging in the idea of creativity. So jump all in, both feet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about like how you do your work-life balance, but you kind of touch base on that. So that's pretty awesome. I love that.
Thanks.
In the photography work you do, like events, branding, headshots, you're capturing people and moments. How do you balance technical execution like lighting, composition with creative intuition?
It's so fun because like, it's never simple, right? I feel like it's gotten easier over time, but there's always just a certain level of complexity to it because you do have so many variables. I'll tell you that as I embraced my authenticity and found my courage and confidence in being exactly who I am everywhere I go, no matter who I'm with or what I'm doing, I photograph more confidently. I extract from clients, I would say, more authentic versions of themselves in just as I speak to them and coach them as we work together. Um, I have found now that the camera is an extension of my being. I know how to tell it exactly what to do. I know to tell it exactly the story I'm trying to tell. And I think that really is the heart of it. Everything that I do creatively is in some way, shape, or form telling a story. And so, whether it's a branding portrait or an event or a milestone event, or whether I'm working with an identity client, it's my most fervent wish to tell their story or help them see themselves. And it's a tool. The lighting is a tool. The camera is a tool. All of it. More than anything, we all want to be seen.
So when you're behind the camera, what do you look for in a shot that tells a story? Like you've been mentioning behind the image. What's the feel you aim to capture?
Well, it depends entirely on the story I'm telling. And so it's interesting. I was just going through, I'm working on a slide deck for a speech that I'm giving next month. And I was talking about the idea that images can oftentimes be emotional or impactful. And I remember we were taking a photo of a young man who was battling a somewhat vicious disease and was fighting for his life. And we lit it in a way that I would never have lit a portrait, but it was basically telling two stories: the story of the joy that is found in accepting our mortality and making the most and the best out of every single day, and the darkness of having to fight that battle. And so we lit it in a way where one side of his face was perfectly lit and really beautiful, and the other side was almost completely blacked out, as if we had drawn a line down the center of his face. And I think looking back on that is the perfect example of the story tells us what to do. The story, the person, it helps us, right, to determine. there's so many artists that have come before me whose work I appreciate. One of Emily's very favorite artists is Richard Avedon. He's a photographer who broke all the rules, broke them all, right? Used harsh light, really close to the subject, brought out all the pores and all the wrinkles, and was literally known for being hired for commercial projects where he would probably go in a very different direction than any other director of photography. And I think that's because he had a very unique perspective, which is huge in creativity, but also he had a story to tell. And I think brands were both uh, anxious to work with him and a little scared, a little intimidated because they're like, well, is his story going to be the same as our story? Because I think that's kind of important. But I think artists that lean into it, like Emily and I hope to do, we tell the story that gets to be told, but maybe from our perspective, which is also so interesting.
Yeah. Do you think of that stuff beforehand, like days beforehand, or is it kind of like a spur of the moment when you're there and you get to see kind of the whole setup?
Yeah, I think it's a plan for A, B, C, and you end up at double Z sometimes as far as like the plan goes. And there's any number of variables and factors, but I think that's part of the fun. I think that's part of the excitement. And I think it's also part of the comfortable nature of doing what you do, the confidence that you have when you do it, and the willingness to have a plan. Because I think preparation, there's no substitute for preparation. But at the same time, being open to the idea that the universe might have a different idea, and you get to look at that and say, yeah, okay, I had the plan that this big picture window would be providing me with a ton of light, but it turns out this actually happened to us one time. We oftentimes, depending on the commercial environment or what we're photographing, we'll look at where the sun is. Okay, well, at this hour, this window faces east and the sun is setting, so there will be nice diffuse light on that side of the building coming in that window. Well, when you're downtown and there's a reflective building on that side, and so the sun is basically beaming from the west side to the east side right back in that room, and it was harsh and ugly and disgusting. It's time for plan B and then plan C. And ultimately, sometimes it turns out way better than you could have ever imagined. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. That's awesome. Pivoting.
Hunters pivot. Yep. If we can find our way out of that rut, I think that that's the moment when we can make a change. And a creative block can oftentimes be based on the way you think something's supposed to happen. I think supposed to is a dirty word. I try not to ever use it. And there are countless ways in which we can say, okay, I'm going to do this completely differently. And in fact, I'm going to do it in a way that's totally uncomfortable. Um, that is the number one way. The other thing, I'm just going to say it, I think physiological change helps, because I feel like there are times when you can't think your way out of a feeling. I love saying that. You can't think your way out of a feeling. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling not creative, and you just start getting into your mind, suddenly it's like you just keep telling yourself, be more creative. Well, it's not going to help. I have literally been known to go splash cold water on my face. I've been known to do jumping jacks. I've been known to elevate myself to a different position, get a ladder, crawl down on the floor. Just changing something about your physiology will oftentimes snap you out. And then, of course, finding inspiration in others. Like the number of times Emily and I will be on a set or doing something, and I'll literally look at her and be like, it's blank. I can't figure it out. She's like, sure, you can. And then we walk it through. We talk about it. She offers something, I offer something. And before you know it, we have a brilliant idea together.
We're going to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah,
And
let's
we're
do
going
it.
to deep dive into meaning, impact, and identity.
Oh, goodness.
So your work spans photography, coaching, speaking, advocacy for LGBTQ+. How do you think creativity serves as a way to advance identity work and inclusion?
We only know what we know. We absolutely don't know what we don't know. I use the word ignorance a lot. I don't use it as a derogatory term. I don't use it at someone. I use it in the presence of someone or some people. And for me, the idea of ignorance is the absence of experience or knowledge on a given topic or series of topics. Minute we admit that and acknowledge that there's plenty of room in our system to be spread, updated, upgraded, all the things, we suddenly now have less ignorance, more knowledge, more experience by way of someone else. And then we get to use that. And so as I have worked on my gender journey, as I have met new and different people from all walks of nationality, race, socioeconomic status, I have become not only a better human, but a better creative because I don't have their lived experience, but they've taught me something and I've gotten a small window into their experience. And that makes me a more rounded person. A more well-rounded person means I'm going to be a more well-rounded artist, which means I'm then going to create far more dynamically than if I had lived inside of like a little echo chamber where my only experience is my own. So I'm sure you know, and as you can imagine, I think that diversity and inclusiveness is a massive opportunity to make the world a better place for us and everybody else in it.
Absolutely. You're kind of like a sponge. You're absorbing all this stuff and like fueling your creative fire down there. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've said that everyone has a coming out story, broadly speaking. How has your coming to creative identity moment looked, and how does it influence how you work with clients?
Somebody said to me once, it takes far more energy and effort to suppress or repress than it does to express. And I think that anytime anyone is spending their time and energy protecting the little glass box inside of them that harbors something, holds something, hides something, it is a drain. It's a drain on energy. It's a drain on resources. And so when I look back on all the years where I operated in this world as a cis male assigned at birth, I did fine. I was checking all the boxes. I had a job, then I went entrepreneur, and then I had a studio, and then I had a wife and a child, and everything seemed to be going just fine, relatively speaking. The minute I sort of rejected conformity and embraced authenticity and started to move towards my coming out story, which for me, the way that I define that is everybody has that moment when shame turns to pride and fear turns to courage and doubt turns to certainty. And we finally say, this is me and I love me and I'm going to be me and I don't have to worry about what the world expects of me or what I'm supposed to be. Suddenly, all of that energy that was wasted can now be dedicated, committed to, and used and utilized for so much more. And so I think that I was doing just fine. But when I said earlier that I'm a better photographer, it's because I just have more resources available to me. I have a full heart, a full mind. Every molecule in my being is certain of the fact that this is me and this is who I get to be. And if I had to say it in one way, I want for every other human on this planet what I have for myself. And that is an unapologetic commitment to who I am and to love that thing. And so it really has now shaped everything about the way that I approach the world. And that includes parenting. And I don't know if people agree with me, but I sure hope they do. Parenting is an incredibly creative endeavor between finding ways to educate your children, to reprimand or correct your children, take corrective action and help them understand how they get to operate in this world. Um, I'm so proud of the child that Frankie is. And I think that I get to be equally as proud of the fact that I believe that that is because of also who I am and who I've accepted. So, yeah, I mean, that's a sort of very long way of saying that I think everybody has a coming out story inside of them because it's just a moment when you unapologetically accept who you are and tell the world that's what it is.
That has been me the last year. Absolutely. Just kind of finding myself again. And I feel like life is too short to not be who you are. Like, why hide it? I've been hiding it for too long. So it's been fun getting to express myself again.
Congratulations. I love everything about that.
If you look back to your earlier self, say like when you were teaching at Brookhaven, and look at where you are now, what has surprised you most about your creative path?
I mean, I think that my authenticity is definitely the biggest shock. As someone who existed on this planet for 41 years, having known that there was something different about me from the age of around 4 or 5, and just feeling as though living as that human just wasn't an option. Even after meeting Emily and being with her for all the years that I was, it wasn't until we had a child that I was able to come to terms with the sacrifice and the cost of being inauthentic. And so I would say that that's the biggest shock of my entire life, because despite loving Emily with every molecule in my being, I still just was committed to the fact that there was no way that I could be that person. And so I would just hide it. Um, if you can meet a person and marry them and love them as much as I loved Emily and still feel like conformity was the only option, then nothing would ever change it in my mind at that time, even when I was at Brookhaven. And so it is the most pleasant surprise of my life to have acknowledged that thing and to be in this euphoric state of authenticity. And also, if anybody has listened to my book, read my book, or listened to me talk, I oftentimes say that Emily was the bridge from being who I believed I was supposed to be and allowed to be to being the person that I truly am. That is also another shock, because I can tell you, for a lot of people that have a coming out story or have hidden parts of themselves, like you, Jennifer, have just alluded to, you just believe that it's hard to accept that somebody would say, that's okay. I love you for exactly who you are. And so I would count that as among my pleasant surprises as well. When Emily looked at me and said, you're my person and we're going to go on this journey together, and whatever that looks like is going to be what it looks like. I won the karmic lottery of spouses, I guess. I don't know how else to say it.
Good. You guys have a
Yeah,
perfect love. I love it.
it's really wonderful.
Real quick, plug your book.
Yeah. So last year I wrote a book. It was on the to-do list for a very long time. I took a personal development and leadership course, and I committed to writing, I think it was 60,000 words or something like that. And I did it. And then I put it on a Google folder and left it there because it wasn't ready. It wasn't time. And then a few years later, I said to Emily, like, I got to do this. Like, this is the year of the book. And last year I wrote a book. The title of that book is Different Doesn't Mean Broken. The very first words of the book are, this isn't about being non-binary, although you will learn some things about gender and how gender's experienced, what it is and what it isn't. It's more about all of those feelings that we have from when we're very young and until we grow very old, that different means broken. And I want to encourage every person on this planet to accept and acknowledge that what makes us different is what makes us special. And accepting that thing, it is literally the cheat code to the most euphoric life and the most amount of impact. So, yeah, it's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org, and you can listen to it on Audible. So go out and check it out. I'm very proud of it.
What does success look like for you now? Is it accolades, clients, personal growth, social impact, or a mix of them?
I mean, I don't think there's any one reason or one benefit to anything. Obviously, they vary in percentages. I'm very impact motivated. And so here's an example. My book is at the moment probably the best kept secret on the internet, in a sense that I've sold probably dozens, maybe hundreds of copies in the last 12 months. That's perfectly fine to me. Would I like to be a New York Times bestseller? Yes. Would I like some of the more closed-minded people in the world put it up for ban so that they could say the things that they want to say? Sure. All the publicity, right? Say good things about me, say bad things about me, just say things about me, as the old marketing and PR adage goes. I had somebody reach out to me that I had never met before, and they said, I found your book and it changed my life.
So your work is some high energy environments, events, conferences, global destinations, and also presumably quieter, intimate sessions. How do those different settings challenge or enrich your creativity?
My gosh, what a great question. We do these, very intimate one-on-one branding sessions or coaching sessions, or different places where you're really kind of touching the heart of an individual versus, 5,000 people in a ballroom. I think it all comes down to energy and um, how it feeds our creativity. An event is, I think a lot of people see corporate events as boring and ballrooms and boardrooms, and it's not exciting. It really is, and it can be. And those are largely very photojournalistic opportunities to tell a story. And so we have very little impact, using the podcast air quotes for those of you who are listening and not watching. We have very little impact on the scene. We can't control the lighting. We can't control the background. We can't control the person. And so it's more about high energy, laser focused, take this moment and make it into a memory, right? Whereas the more intimate environment, a lot of times you're choreographing. I don't like the word posing. It's stale and it makes people uncomfortable and they feel like there's a certain way they're supposed to be standing there. So we choreograph these moments to try to help this person become organic or natural. And it's a skill set. It's something that I struggled with at Brookhaven. A lot of young new photographers, they're learning the technical know-how and learning to see the light and learning to create the light and introduce the light and then do this and then do that. And at the very bottom, they're like, oh, I also need to engage with the person that I'm taking a photo with. And it's very difficult. It's a very personal environment. And so I think that they're equally challenging in very different ways. And what I'll tell you is all of it comes back to the same concept of courage, comfort, and confidence. You just get to do the practice, to know the gear, to know the creative process, to know how you want to show up. And then you go in there with that confidence, and suddenly you're either in charge of extracting that emotion and that originality and that authenticity from the subject, or you're in charge of being where you need to be at the time you need to be there to make that memory out of a moment. So, yeah, I think that it's about knowing which photographer to be and when, which creative to be and when.
For creatives listening, what would you say is the biggest myth about being a creative professional that you would like to myth bust us?
That you're going to be poor. I think that like poor broke down artist is kind of like they all go together. It's like a redundant statement. Struggling artist. It is hard. I like to term what we do an artist in service to another. And so we're hired oftentimes to meet an end goal. And the reason that we're hired is because we contain a unique knowledge, experience, and skill set that the person doesn't have, right? If they did, they would do it themselves. They could do self-portraits or they could take the event photos themselves. They don't have that. And so I think that if, regardless of what your medium is, if you're a writer, if you're a photographer, if you're a sculptor, there are ways in which to apply your creative skill set, your talent to a service or to an opportunity to create wealth, to create revenue, to create money. And so I was subject to this, right? I loved photography. I spent hours upon hours in high school and early college in the dark room. And then I literally put my camera down, except when I would go on travel or except for some sort of small project or something that a friend would ask. And it's because I didn't think that art was a career. And so that's the myth. I know countless people that make money as an artist in service. I also know countless people that have found their way to creating art just for the sake of creating art and making money at that too. So be authentic, be who you are. And if who you are is a creative and who you are as an artist and it brings you joy, then do what you love and the money will come. Thanks, you, Steve Jobs. Gone too soon. Such a wonderful quote. If I could go back and tell a younger photographer, stop trying to be a photographer and just be a photographer. Stop trying to be a writer, just be a writer. Stop trying to be whatever it is that you are and just be that thing because you're the only person that knows what that means. The way that I'm a photographer, the way that Emily's a photographer, the way that Simon's a photographer, the way that you, Jennifer, was a photographer or still are a photographer, it's just all different. We are each a photographer in our own way. And so let's go ahead and make that macro. Let's take that up to 50,000 feet. Stop trying to be who or whatever you are and just be it. Write your book, Jennifer, and I'll be your accountability buddy. Get it out there in the world.
Love it. Text you right after this. All right. So what tools, habits, or routines have you developed or are developing that help sustain your creativity and authenticity?
Yeah. So this is the deliberate practice part. I work on streaks. I joke around with my wife and like the line from Old School with Will Ferrell. I'm like, we're going streaking. Not in the college way, but I find streaks to be really helpful for me. And so I have a walking app, I have a sort of nutrition and wellness tracking app, and I have Duolingo. And one of the things that I have Insight Timer as well. So those are my four. And I find that consistency matters so often. And so I find that any way in which I can deliberately commit to a practice that I know is good for my mind, my body, my soul, whatever, is a good thing. And so That's for me. The other thing that I try to do is balance the things that I do because it's a vocation, right? And because it's just for the pure love of doing it. And I think that there gets to be certain things in our life where you're doing it just for the pure, unadulterated joy of doing it. There's a John Lennon quote that I love: "Time that you enjoy wasting isn't wasted time." And so whether it be binge watching something on Netflix, reading a trashy novel, People magazine, video games, whatever it is, if there's something that you do that fills your cup, makes you happy, and other people might look at it and judge you for it, let them, because other people's opinions of us are none of our business.
Yeah. All right. So, lastly, what's one unsaid truth about being a creative entrepreneur, photographer, coach, speaker you wish more people understood?
One of my favorite things that I said in the book was, I'm special, I'm different, and I'm unique, just like everyone else. And I think the reason that's so powerful is because I think we live in aspirational worlds where somebody will look at the things that Emily and I have accomplished, the huge 5,000 person events that we photographed literally all around the world, and they think to themselves that that's aspirational, but not something that they could in fact accomplish. And I think the unsaid truth is everybody is some varying degree of creativity. And if they just accept and acknowledge the absolute beauty that exists in their creativity and worry less about what that's supposed to look like and what's expected of them, and just usher it forward in whatever way makes sense, right? I had somebody say to me like, "Oh, I've always liked writing, but I don't know." And I was like, "Start with a Substack or a Medium account or longer posts on LinkedIn or Instagram. Find a pen pal, write in a journal, right? All of those things make you a writer. All of them make you an author, and all of them make you a creative." So I think that the unsaid truth is that the aspirational nature of creativity feels like it's a world away and it's well within your reach.
All right. So, we've got some fun little wrap up questions.
Mm.
Um, we are going to start with my little mason jar here. And
Ooh,
here is a bunch of little random questions, not
okay.
necessarily related to creativity. We're going to see what we get.
Goodness.
There's some
I'm
fun ones
super
in here.
excited.
All right. Thank you. All right. You're stuck in an elevator with three people, living, dead, or fictional. Who's
My
there?
God. Oh my gosh. My grandfather, my daughter, and my wife. Yeah. My grandfather was the paternal influence that I needed but didn't have. He was he was a member of the Greatest Generation. He was a World War II fighter pilot and mechanic, and uh, he was this big, rotund Italian man with white, thinning hair, just like the Godfather, but had the kindest eyes and the kindest soul. Um, I always wanted him to meet my daughter and my spouse, and I wanted him to meet the me that I am.
He is. He is. He's watching you.
I hope so.
That's awesome. So last, I'm trying to create my little bird community, my burb community. Since this is all about Phoenix rising, basically. My vector rising. Um, if you were a bird, what bird would represent you? And you can change the colors if you want. It's cool too.
It's really interesting because I was joking around with Emily, and I do appreciate, I'm not a nature person, so I do appreciate a little heads up that this was a question you might ask. The little kid in me wants to be this bird that we found out about doing an incentive destination trip in Mexico, on the coast of Mexico. There's a bird called the blue-footed booby, and it's just fun to say. And it's this beautiful white bird with beautiful bright blue feet, but that's not it. And then I went to peacock because of its beautiful feathers and its unique nature. But peacocking is tied to toxic masculinity, which I don't want to have anything to do with. So I was like, okay, I can't, because you talk about like guys peacocking at the gym. Nope, can't do that. And then I remembered that when I went through this personal development and leadership course, we read a book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And it's this beautiful work. And it talks about basically how seagulls learn to fly over time. and that they don't know that they can fly really until they fly. And it's this journey of authenticity and acceptance of who we are. And one of the main morals that I took away from it was, one of the reasons it's so important that seagulls fly is because the other seagulls see them fly and they realize that it's safe for them to do the same. And so if I could be any bird, it would be a seagull.
I just keep thinking of Little Mermaid. Mine.
Ah, yes. They're a communal bunch, which is, I think, really important to me too, right? They're community based and focused, and they fly together and stay together. So yeah, I love that scene. I think it's adorable, and I think that it's a beautiful representation of what we're capable of.
All right, that's today's creative adventure. Now it's your turn. What sparked an idea for you? Shared your thoughts or even a doodle with me on Instagram at CreativeKitty13 or on my LinkedIn page. You can see that below. Dawn, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. If you could give us your handles so we can go visit you.
It's really very complicated. So everybody, I'm Don Mamone pretty much everywhere. And I'm sure that the spelling of that will be in the show notes. But I have a website. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, many of the things. And I really do want to get this across. My messaging is open. My DMs are open. My email is open. You'll find that on my website. I love community, and I love to help people see themselves by seeing them as well. And so if anybody's struggling, if anybody needs help, if anybody wants to just drop a note, please feel free. Send a carrier pigeon. I don't care. Just get in touch.
I don't think you realize, but because I know I took classes from you, but I kind of watched your whole journey on Instagram and social media. And I don't know if you remember, but I reached out to you because I had a friend that was going through a transition, and
Yeah.
I introduced you to them, and that's kind of how I got back in contact with you. So
It's a
thank you for all
beautiful
that.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing. Thank you for that. I appreciate you.
yeah, absolutely. So everyone, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode, because you never know what creative spark is waiting for you next. And pay it forward by sharing this episode with someone who needs some inspiration.